Where are you, Holly? What part of the world? If I could let you unmute.
I am in Bali right now.
Oh my God, you're so lucky. I
Mhm.
think. I mean, you tell me. Are you so lucky?
Yeah, I'm really grateful to be here right now.
It's a magic place.
It really is. It's quite magical here.
And how did you find out about this unconference?
I went to the one in person when I was in New York back in, I think it was like November or sometime
Wow.
in, yeah.
Yeah, I'm a friend of Michael Healy's, and I was supposed to speak at that, and I had some conflict. I think I was in Los Angeles or something. So I'm not in New York City, but I'm about an hour north in the country, and it's so beautiful here. And at the same time, I feel for, the planet and mankind and the places where people are, crowded together. It's really made you rethink the whole evolution of everyone going to cities.
Yeah, truly. And like, it's been really interesting to be here in Bali because it's like we're kind of in our own little bubble here. And I mean, Bali depends on tourism for like 90% of their business. So it is getting hit hard here, and
Right.
see what we can do and we can help support and find community. Yeah.
Yeah. Do you, I mean, do you live in New York and you went there because you have a family or a place there? Like that's a very good choice if you're not dependent on the tourist business.
Yeah. So I live in, well, I grew up in Los Angeles and I was living in San Francisco, and then I've been traveling for the past year and a half or so. And so kind of like living in one place for like 2 to 3 months. So I was in New York for 3 months, and then I had intentions to come to Bali to share my workshop here. And
Hmm.
then once I got here, everything just got shut down. And then just like
Oh.
assessing like where I should go and what's the best place to be. And yeah, ultimately just trusting my intuition. And right here is right where I'm supposed to be.
That's so great. What is your workshop? I'm just waiting for some more people. I did this 2 weeks ago, and we had about 20 people, and it's early in the morning in New York, so most of my friends are just not online at this hour. I've noticed the arc, and I want to hear about the workshop. I noticed the arc of how people have started to burn out from online conferences and Zooms and classes because they've been on for so couple of weeks now, and so I've noticed the arc is different. That in the morning people are not as much on, and that's where it is here. So, but at night everyone is on because they have to stay home. Um,
Gotcha.
so yeah, what is your conference about? Your workshop about?
So my workshop is called the Dream Workshop, and it poses the question of what your dreams are for yourself personally and
Mm,
what your dreams are for the world. Uh,
mm,
so it's dreams as an intention and vision, goals. And I will actually be sharing like a short snippet of it in the next week's conference.
oh, that's awesome. Hi, Gino. Where are you coming from? What
Hong
part?
Kong.
Where?
Hong Kong.
Hong Kong. How is it there?
It's actually pretty good now. I was actually out today. I normally go out like 1 day a week, and today, I mean, I couldn't get a cab. The subways were full, packed, couldn't get
Oh,
a seat, and yeah, things are pretty much back to normal. They had like 24 days where there was no local transmission. All the new cases were people coming back to Hong Kong, and
wow.
then I I think 3 days ago, there was one family out of after 22 days or so, there's like one family where it was the grandfather, the
Mm,
kid, and the mother
right.
all came out positive. And
Mm.
from that, they tested 600 people that had interacted with them. And
Wow.
so Hong Kong's pretty on top of like tracking who's meeting with who and and just seeing how they're doing things. And here I was with a bunch of people from the US, and they're like, oh my God, you know,
Yeah.
there's no way in hell they're doing things at that level of detail.
Yeah.
In the United
Well,
States.
unfortunately for us, it's an election year and it's been politicized. So you have these sides fighting against each other and pulling, and then slipping through that crack are the welfare and well-being of people who really need help. And I live in New York and I'm about an hour outside of the city. And you
Oh,
would never know it. Everyone is pretty normal here. People are walking around, walking their dogs, biking. And it's very nice, but there's a lot of distance. You're not packed into any areas together. So it's
this morning I was with my son. I have four kids. The oldest is at Johns Hopkins. The younger one just got into the place called Blair Academy in New Jersey.
mm,
Um, and then right now it seemed, and then my daughter just got into UC Berkeley as well.
oh,
And
wow.
so, but it looks like school may not happen in the fall, they're saying.
We don't know everything. This is part of the talk about the reason why I brought up happiness to have a talk is that I have been fortunate to have my passion also be my occupation, which is music. And I've
Oh,
been able to, and I have a little gray scruff, so I've been doing this since I was 13 and have been very fortunate to be able to be doing the thing that I love and making that actually my living. And one of the things it teaches you is how little control we have over certain situations. Like I thought I would be a rock star and famous like Bono or something by the time I was 30 and retired by the time I was 40 and trotting out to important events to dispel some wisdom. And here I am at 60 just being a worker among workers, but doing really well. And there's a quote that a friend of mine keeps talking about. It's from the Bible, and it's be like bread upon the waters. It's this beautiful idea that we're all like bread on the water. We're floating with this current. So we don't know if there will be school in the fall or not, and we don't know whether things will open up and then blow up and close back down again. So it's really something to be looked at. I wanted to talk about, I have a book that came out, and it's my first one, and I'll and one of these. So I tried to frame it into life principles because I've read books about tennis where it talks about your mind, not about hitting the ball, and I've read Phil Jackson, who was a big basketball coach for the Boston, for the Chicago
Lakers and
Bulls.
Bulls.
Yeah, and they all talk about this more spiritual philosophy that leads into a very technical thing, direction like sports or tennis or something. So I framed a book that I had around 8 life principles, and one of them is is this concept that of how good leads to better, like following the energy. And it's quantum physics that whatever you focus your mind on gets bigger, and whatever you focus your mind on, so if you're focusing on all of the bad news all the time, it becomes an apocalyptic kind of train that you get on. And if you focus on what's good, even if it sounds like, you're sipping the tea leaves and being a Pollyanna, you tend to just vibrate a different frequency. I mean, we're all energy and information. We're all vibrating. Energy is a frequency of matter.
I have to warn you, I do research in consciousness. I'm a professor at a university here.
That's awesome. Well, I want you to jump in at every minute to disagree or to add or whatever, because this is awesome. So I've done a lot of consciousness journeying, and it's a endless process. There's no the success is in the journey and not the destination. um Abraham Lincoln is quoted, and it's in the Bible as well, that people are as happy as they make up their minds to be. So I wanted to read to you a little bit from a book, from my book that I have coming out. And just to give you a crazy thing about how in the midst of all this sorrow, I've had this book, I've taught at NYU for 15 years, and the kids have come up to me after every semester and said, I didn't just learn about songwriting, like lyrics and chords, I learned about life. Like I learned about how to live soulfully, how to be of service, how to, not be so caught up in the control of it has to be one way, that to be open-minded to what comes to you and see it with through different eyes. So I put off writing a book because you're busy in life, and then with the pandemic, I finished it 5 years ago. With the pandemic, I thought everything is shut down. I can't go in the studio. I can't do anything. So long story short, I put the book out, and it's been #1 on Amazon in America for a week in a row now, like on the songwriting charts and lyric charts. And it's unbelievable because it's my first book, and I have no publicist, no marketing person. I don't even know how, but it's kind of a life moment.
I can set you up with a couple. I know a couple in New York.
Great. That would be awesome. And we definitely, I want to please like include your email, and I'll definitely swap information with you. I appreciate that. And so in the book, it just says chapter 1, good leads to better. And it's like a train, good leads to better and bad leads to worse. So get on the good train. It's the law of physics. Whatever we focus on gets bigger. If the news programs or websites are all negative, then turn away from them. You're allowed. You can go on a media fast, similar to a food fast. So I won't get into this whole story because I'm in a whole story now that let me see if I can screen share for a minute here and do this and show you guys this. This is just from like a day or two ago. And I'm in complete shock, because I'm not known as a writer. It just came out. So this is like from yesterday. It moves around, and Van Morrison is #5. So I'm just in kind of an awe of how the universe works. And it's sort of, sometimes in life we plant seeds and we wonder why things aren't happening. And then at other times they just sort of come up out of the ground on their own. And there is, and go ahead.
I actually, there's a group. Do you go to Burning Man at all?
I'm a 10-year burner. Yeah.
Hey, there's a group there called Robot Heart.
Yeah. And I know all those people. In fact, the DJ, Jesse Hook Scumfrog, who used to be one of their main DJs, is a really good friend, but I know a lot of the Robot Heart people.
Well, one of the guys I mentor is a guy named Jason Swami, who's the creative director of Robot Heart.
Oh, wow.
And his company is called Do What You Love.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's a common phrase. So I may change it, I may, because it's a company that I started. And again, the reason why I started, and the energy of this happiness is how good leads to better is I just, I read about how in the old days of New York, all these artists and poets would gather. You'd have Allen Ginsberg come together with Dave Van Ronk, and then Bob Dylan would show up, and all these people would exchange ideas. So I started hosting these salons of artists and burners and tech founders and all these people, kind of like the Unconference, but in person. And again, not looking to start a business, and not looking to make money, but just looking to have a richer experience in life.
Wait, related to that, are you, because just yesterday I was with a big group. In fact, I'm getting Jason Swami together with this other guy. His name is Praz Ananda in London, in the UK. And they basically bring artists together in like a big warehouse space. And then they like co-create, and he's got rules, almost like the 10 Burning Man rules of
Right.
getting artists together to co-create events in this big warehouse space. And so they're there for like 2 weeks, and then the last 3 days they like do like a big party, talks, music thing there. And then right now the idea is kind of post-COVID to do these kind of gatherings
Yeah,
in major cities around the world.
I'd love to meet them, and both of you, Holly and Gino. I'm gonna write down my email, my personal email, and cell phone, and I'd love to stay in touch because I'm doing all kinds of things right now. Um, you know, I have a songwriting workshop coming next week, and as a budding songwriter, I'm kind of blown away that I have a guy who wrote the song "The Time of My Life" from the Dirty Dancing film that won an Oscar and a Grammy, and I have my friend John Hall, who is from a band called Orleans, and in the 70s they had these songs, "Dance with me, I want to be your partner, can't you see," like big hits. And when there was a nuclear meltdown years ago in Pennsylvania at 3 Mile Island, he got Bob Dylan and Bruce Springsteen and Crosby, Stills and Nash and did this No Nukes concert, and he's coming on. So what I'm finding is, and this is sort of more of a conversation than a lecture because we're interactive. And Holly, please chime in because you're sound fascinating, the things that you're sharing about what you're doing with your workshop, and I want you to share it some more. Um, there's like this old world that's crumbling, and it's hanging on for dear life, and it's full of fear and death and uncertainty. And in the midst of that, it's like in the story of the Buddha, how this lotus came up from out of the mud, and out of that lotus, sprang this divine creature. And I feel like there, especially with the kind of conversations and vibrational frequency of the unconference, there's really a new world emerging, and Burning Man is part of it, and the tech world is part of it, and blockchain is part of it, and the old world is holding on really hard for dear life. Um, but the principles of this book that I had mentioned, that I had read for a minute, and I'm going to go look for a moment again. I don't know why I took it out, but it's similar to what you talked about your friends with the with getting artists together. I'm going to just do another screen share for a minute, and and these are nothing new, but these are principles that I've lived by that have changed my life. And if you want to jump to another one, good leads to better is really quantum physics, and I think that when you're on a roll, it gets better. And following your joy is the Joseph Campbell principle that has meant a lot to a lot of people. And also, sometimes these things really don't work. Like there's an anti do what you love as well, and you can't just be living in rose-colored glasses. Sometimes you follow your joy and you move to California and you become homeless, or you move to Germany and you get COVID-19. It's not that these are ironclad ways of escaping life's problems, but maybe they are suggested directions to increase your chances at happiness. Be audacious is something like, I mean, Steve Jobs is a perfect example of someone who literally, described the way he was working with his company to dent the universe. And seeing life as energy, again, is connected to good and better. And travel, which I would put in also as adventure, is something that, um, I was watching, there's a thing in America right now on psychedelics, and a lot of very renowned people are in it. Carrie Fisher's in it, Deepak Chopra. I guess Carrie Fisher filmed before she passed away, but Deepak Chopra's in it, and a lot of medical researchers from Johns Hopkins and NYU. And the idea of travel and going on sacred pilgrimages like people do in Brazil and in Peru have led to people having enormous healing, both biochemical healing as well as spiritual and energetic healings. Service to others is a thing that is one of the principles of life. I mean, I in my book, and part of it going number one is that I committed to donating the royalties through the month of May to a organization called the World Central Kitchen, and it's a guy named Chef Andres, and he's fed over 2.5 million people just in America alone in the last month free meals. He just is a very famous chef and has gathered wealthy people to give him money, and he's kept restaurant workers working, and he's kept um, people working for the restaurants delivering food, and he's fed doctors and lawyers and essentials. So the service to others, my deciding to use this thing that's very personal, it's a product I have, it's a book, it's out, but to use it to raise money to help people eat, who are in the middle of last month, especially the worst part of America's pandemic. um, it, it it ties right into number four, which is seeing life as energy. This good karma got created, and wings started sprouting for it to go. And embrace the negative, which is number eight, is something that um, I'm a songwriter. So they call it singing the blues. I've taken many times when I'm lonely, sad, hurt, angry, heartbroken, and I'll pick up a guitar and I'll write a song about it. And the song is just the best thing that anyone has ever heard. And it's making lemonade out of lemons. So these are like these eight keys that I have of my little do what you love thing. And I'm sharing do what you love with a lot of other people like WeWork and your friend from Connected to Robot Heart. It's there's also something to the brain chemistry that when you hear a phrase that is familiar, your neuroreceptors connect right away, and in a friendly way. When you hear something that's quibby or something that you've never heard before, it takes a while for your brain to connect and sort of know what it's about. So I I just want to say that in the last 30 days, I've been on a roll. I knew about COVID-19 about 2 weeks before it hit New York, and I just started wearing gloves and masks before anyone else, and people thought I was like some weird, like crazy person. And then I heard that things were going on lockdown. I immediately moved out of the city, and I found a little Airbnb that I wish I could open the windows, but then you really can't see me. It's this beautiful place. And I'm a self-employed musician. And so I really don't qualify for the government grants that, you know, are really for restaurants and other things. And when I say I don't qualify, meaning I'm not a traditional business. It's like I work the way Billie Eilish works, who won all the Grammys this year. She recorded her album in her bedroom, and I have a studio in my house. So I didn't even go to my bank. I wrote a letter, a personal letter to the president of my bank, which is a multi-billion-dollar big time thing. And I just said, look, I love your bank. I love the people in it. It's so amazing. And they represent you so well that if I applied for this payroll protection plan, they would immediately turn me down because I don't have like a payroll like a hardware store or a restaurant. But I do need help. I am a corporation. I do have employees. And the president of the bank called and said, we're going to help you. And started on a Monday. And by Friday, they put a lot of money in my bank to cover payroll and expenses. And that was really a miracle because I know a lot of people still trying to get that. And then I decided to make the book. And I'm going to stop talking in a minute because I want to hear from you guys. I decided to make my book a charity driven thing so that I could raise money to feed people in New York. And I was shocked that 2 days before it debuted, with no publicity or marketing, it debuted at number one. So the good leads to better principle for me right now is really working. It's like the saying, when you're on a roll, you're on a roll. It's like things keep happening. And when things get bad, they go from bad to worse, you know. Michael Moore did a movie years ago about his hometown of Flint, Michigan, about how once the car company um, left, it was called Roger and Me. It was his first movie. Like, poverty came in. Uh, hey, Jose, do you mind muting? Or I'll mute you. So, you know, the opposite example is Flint, Michigan, just keeps getting dumped on. Like when the General Motors left, or I forget which car company, right away, poverty set in and unemployment set in, and then the governor rerouted the water away from and put like polluted water in, and all these kids got like lead poisoning, and it just keeps getting dumped on. So it's this philosophy of good leads to better. And sometimes I get up in the morning and I have to just write a gratitude list. I know it's a very simple thing, but I'll write out 10 things that I'm happy for today, and 10 things. And it just moves life in a different direction. Like, it's very subtle, but so we have 5 more minutes, and I didn't even get to share half of, uh, we kibitzed the first half of this. So I want to just open the floor up. And I also want to say that I am doing a songwriting workshop. This isn't like, I'm not funding my company. It's just really a thing that for people to be creative online. So I'm going to put some of the links of the stuff I'm doing. And I would love to stay in touch with you, Holly and Gino. And I'd love to hear from anyone else in the room that wants to jump in and share something. So the floor is open, as they say.
Well, a couple things for me. One is what inspired you in terms of putting your eight points together, and then related to that, number two, just hearing you speak. Some of it, you're talking about vibration and everything, which is kind of new agey, and then you're covering kind of karma, which is kind of more kind of Hindu, and then you're covering the Bible, and it sounds like you have a Christian background as well too, which is a mix of stuff, and so you're kind of, it seems like you're drawing from different things, and then from your life experience, you've come up with these kind of 8 principles that seems to work for you. That's what it seems like, but you're kind of sampling from a lot of these different traditions. And then the third thing is, given that you're doing this, given the COVID situation and everything, and now that you have this book out, what are you trying to do with your life? Like, what's the new normal for you moving forward? How does the good go to better to great? How do you see this trajectory going for you?
Those are great questions. So to answer a few of them, the first one is that the Buddhist and the Christian and the Hindu, I'm a mutt. If I was a dog, I'd have like one big ear and one tiny thing and like a long snout, but a tiny tongue. So, I've just been a spiritual seeker my whole life. So whether it was learning to meditate at age 13 with Pir Vilayat from India, who was the head of the Sufi order at the time, or whether it was hanging out with crazy UFO people, or whether it was taking plant journeys, or whether it was reading both of the Bibles and the Quran and the Bhagavad Gita and other sacred texts. I'm more like a weaver. So I see like the red thread from the Bhagavad Gita, and then I see the same red thread from the Quran, and then I see, oh, in the Bible, in this section, there's also a red thread. And so I've woven together a fabric that seems to be connected and not singular to one specific path. And then I tried to dumb it down a little bit, because, talking to someone like, probably if you're here, um, you know, Miranda, Jose, Jacoby, there's a bunch of people in here. Kinesia, I hope I'm pronouncing your name right. You're already pretty enlightened just to get here. So I put it on more simple terms, like good leads to better or be audacious, because there are things that people need to hear that maybe aren't doing these things. And on a personal life, where I'm going is my personal mission is to make a difference in the world. And I've done what I love my whole life, and I've collected people. If I have a friend of mine who sang the Pokemon theme song, you know, like, and there was a big Pokemon Go explosion like 2 years ago, and everyone's Pokemon. Like he wants it, and he's a burner. So he asked me once, like, what's your superhero power? And mine is the bridge. I'm just this natural born connector. I can't, it's compulsive. Like if I'm talking to Holly Holly in Bali, and she's doing her course, like I'll immediately do what you just did with me and say, I've got to connect you to this guy, that guy. Like I will send people her way without any thought of what's in it for me. It's just a compulsion almost. I do take care of myself. I do make a living at what I do, but that's not the reason for my existence. So I have a famous fashion designer friend who's never done a course and never done a video. I have a restaurateur who's opened 5 restaurants in New York that are successful up until the virus, and he'll be successful again. And so what I'm going to do is make videos and classes and courses and put live events and actually do a startup where it's not just like a master class or TED talk where you watch someone and that's it. It's where you can maybe go on once a week and actually meet someone. Let's say you want to open a restaurant, and that's a lot of people's bucket list when they retire, like, oh, I want to open up a little, you know, taco stand on the beach or something. You can then actually meet someone who's done it, and they can tell you all the screwed up things not to do that caused them to lose their shirt in the first 3 restaurants before they started making money. And so I'm really going to be creating an educational company that's both online and in person, where people don't just watch someone on the screen, but really get to have both community, which is what I've learned from Burning Man, and mentors. And there's a lost art of mentorship that is really fantastic. So I've put the book and a little songwriting thing. Anyone who wants to come, like, let me know. I'll just sign you up for free. I'm not trying to promote anything here to, you know, I'm here to connect and make friends. And Holly and Gino, once more, I'm gonna, and anyone in here, I'm gonna put my personal email because I'm really inspired to be part of this change that we're doing right now. And it's a humbling when really good stuff happens. If you've really been walking the path, like this path of what your mission in life is, your dharma, it's humbling rather than like big-headed. You know, I work around rock stars. The biggest rock stars in the world are really humble because they've already achieved that thing where the entire world has said, we love you. And then their wife tells them, well, your breath smells and you got to take out the garbage. And they get humbled, you know, over time. So when my book went #1 last week, I just went out to the water and I sat there like I did something that honored my parents. They were public school teachers and they sacrificed their life to give me a better life. That tradition of not just the 20th century or 21st century, but this tradition of parents passing along a better life to their child. And I sat there and it makes me almost cry to talk about this. It I just thought like all of their sacrifice, you know, has paid off in
Mm.
me doing something that's passing along a better life to someone else. So I think that there's forgive me, Vanessa. Is Vanessa here?
Hi, yes, I'm here.
Oh, thank you, Vanessa. Please, I apologize so much for going over time. Uh, I'm
Thank you.
I'm gonna just mute and listen to you now. And Gino and Holly, please email me or put your emails. I would love to stay in touch and share with you all of these things. And I'd like to, Gino, meet those people that you had mentioned, being the connector that you are.
I added you on Facebook.
Okay. Oh, good. Thank you so much. This is awesome. I'm the only Larry Dvoskin, by the way, on Facebook and Instagram. It's a weird name, so that's a good thing. And thank you, everyone. Thank you, Kanisha. Thank you, Thomas. Thank you, Miranda, Malte, Ada. Thank you, Vanessa. I'm staying with you now and muting, and away you go.